Ladies and gentlemen, thank you to be here. A few seconds or a few minutes for the photographers. I am Angelo Codignoni, and I'm the President and CEO of Eurosport TV, and in this session I am the moderator. My daily task as the leading sport channel in Europe is to communicate around the value of sport and entertain the European public with sporting events. I would like to thank Professor Schwab for his initiative to invite the world of sport at Davos for the first time. The world of sport is here, represented at the top level. The question on this public session is, can a ball change the world? I am honored to introduce the people that will answer this question. President Rogge of the IOC, President Sepp Blatter, representing the FIFA, Commissioner David Stern for NBA, Pelé, no presentation, I think, Charles Denson, President of Nike, and Mel Young, President and CEO of the Homeless World Cup. We have 1 hour. I am Italian. Maybe we'll take a little bit more. You know, we have a ball, we have a flame, we have a World Cup. I think that I will ask first to President Rogge that as an organization, IOC, with the National Olympic Committee in more than 200 countries, is behind him. You know, there is more than 60 federations, Winter and Summer Federation, International Federation. You know, President Rogge, what is the state of the art of the world of sport today from your point of view?
Well, I believe that we are actually living in a golden era of sport. And I will start with the positive issues, but at the same time, I will say that there are telltale signs that we have to address certain issues to continue in this success period. We enjoy a great participation throughout the world. It is estimated that there are approximately 800 million people practicing sport on a regular basis, be it on a recreational basis or in the competitive zone. And they are in about 5 million sports clubs. This is, of course, a big social movement. And we also enjoy a lot of audience in competitions. And I remind you of the figures of the FIFA and the International Olympic Committee for the FIFA World Cup or for the Olympic Games. There is a mean audience on a daily basis of between 3.5 and 4 billion people watching the games. And this, of course, attracts a lot of revenues. And both FIFA and the IOC have revenues in excess of over $4 billion, but we redistribute them mainly in developing countries. So I would say participation is a success, audience is a success, revenues are a success, but we have to be careful. We have to be careful because definitely we have to work on the values. We have doping, there is violence, there is corruption, and this is really issues that we have to tackle as strong as possible, just to keep the value of our movement. There are also, I believe, 2 actual trends that we have to address. In the developed world, we are seeing slowly a diminution of the physical activity of young kids. They are today the slaves of the small screen, be it their mobile phone with SMS, be it the video game, be it the PC, be it the television. And our kids are not moving as they used to do. And this reflects in obesity, this reflects also in the emergence of diabetes type 2. And definitely we ought to bring them back to movement and to sport. And then In the developing countries, you have this great injustice, and this is the great injustice of the North-South divide, whereby the access to sport is more difficult than it would be in developed countries, and it is also our duty to compensate that, and the sports organizations, FIFA, but also the other federations, and definitely the International Olympic Committee do a lot of efforts to redistribute their revenues to developing countries to make access to sport more possible.
Yes, what do you really do for peace, for example?
Well, we have the Olympic Truce. It is a symbol that was invented by the Greeks 3,000 years ago. And during the Olympic Games, there was no war between the Greek cities, and there was a free circulation. We've taken that symbol up again in 1992, especially at the moment where there was a war in the Balkan and in Yugoslavia. I remind you that at that time there was a boycott for participation of sport by the United Nations, but we could persuade the United Nations to lift the boycott and allow the Yugoslavian athletes to participate in the Barcelona Games. And from then on, we are continuing with this symbol of the Olympic truce that has been endorsed at the level of the United Nations General Assembly and always unanimously. We believe that it is a symbolic aspect, of course. We know that we will not turn the globe in another direction, but as the Secretary General of the United Nations has said himself, if people can stop waging war for 2 weeks, they might reflect on whether it is worthwhile to continue after the Games. I believe, to be very brief, that sport, beyond its activities, has a great value to society. It is an educational tool for the citizen, especially for the youth. It brings social cohesion. It has an economic good effect, and there the symbolic of the peace plays also a role in sport.
And the Olympic solidarity. Yeah, you know, as a media manager, sometimes we forget to present to the world what the sport do, you know, for the solidarity. I think that the Olympic Committee, International Olympic Committee, they do a lot for the solidarity. Do you think that this will be, you know, improved? There is a lot of money invested on it by the Olympic Committee. What is your position?
Yes, we redistribute, actually, we redistribute 92% of our revenue, and we only keep 8% of our revenue for our own overhead. So I think this is a fair share of what an organization can do. And there's a lot of good things that is done by sport, not only by the IOC, but also by all the international federations. But you know, with the media, good news is no news, and that's the problem.
We know that, but in terms of news, you know, we are on the left side, we have something very well known, is the Olympic flame, is the torch for Torino. In a few days, you have one of the biggest events in the world that will start. What is your impression, you know, how the Olympics game, you know, can change the world?
I don't think, frankly speaking, that they can change the world, but they can make a better world. So I think we have to be careful not to be too bombastic, but definitely I believe in the positive values of sport. It is a great movement, a great participation. It has great values for the individual and for society. It leaves a tremendous legacy for the organizing city. And that definitely, I think, is very positive. And it is also the perfect symbol of universality, be it at the Olympic Games or the World Championship of the international federations. You see they're living peacefully together, the athletes of all different ethnic groups, religions, languages, cultures, and beliefs. And this is something unique.
Thank you, President Rogge. Now, I would like to pass the ball to the court to Mr. President Sepp Blatter. You know, President, I will ask you to do something. Maybe it's not easy for you to play with Pelé and to play with Mel Young because, you know, he's the organizer of the World Homeless Cup. And I would like to understand a little bit more, you know, what is your position. And I would like Mel and Pelé to react to your presentation.
Okay, thank you, Angelo, and I would say hello to everybody here. It is also a great pleasure for football to be in this forum, and especially in this discussion. I come back to the title of the session of today, and can a ball change the world? First of all, we have to look at the ball and to identify why we speak about the ball. We speak about the ball because it is the globe. It is our globe. And our globe is continuously in movement. And therefore, when you use a ball for sports activities, the ball is also always in movement. And here, I am naturally very glad to say that the ball we are using in football is used by an extremely high number of people. We have in the 207 national associations about 250 million active participants in our game, including all the family of football, players, coaches, referees, medical assistants, even those called les fonctionnaires, but not those elected, because they are not fonctionnaires. And these 250 million, according to a study of the University of Southern California, they have at least connections in their family 4 people. So if I take the number 250 million by 3 or by 4, I get the number of 1 billion people are directly and or indirectly involved with the game called association football, generally called football, in the United States called soccer. But nevertheless, it is a movement. So can this ball change the world? I agree with the president of the IOC when he says we should not say we change the world, but we can change a little bit to the better world. And this is then included in the word change. Just a little bit, we will change. How can we do it? It is so easy. Because let's look at football not at the economical side, but let's look at football in its social, cultural aspect. School of life, because football is based on self-discipline, on respect. It is a game, a combat game, fighting, but with the fair play spirit. Oh, by the way, you are asking why there are so many footballers in the world. I just appeal to the ladies. You remember when you had your children? What was the first movement of a boy or a girl before you give them life? They were kicking. They were kicking. And this is the origin of the popularity of our game. So, yeah.
Important federation, FIFA.
It's not my invention. It's not my invention. This is a fact. This is a fact. So let's go with this game. Let's make with this game this school of life. Let's make with this game the hope it can bring to the world. And let's make with this world the positive emotions and the emotions which will be given now in any football match, but especially in the 2006 World Cup, when during 1 month, and we tried to make the football truce during 4 weeks, we tried to imitate you, Dr. Rogge, and we tried to do the same. And then, with these positive emotions, at the end of the day, I think we can say we don't change the world, but we made it a little bit better. And to underline what I have said, School of Life, I would give the floor to Edson Arantes de Nascimento, who will explain to you his experiences as footballer. And then you will see that what I have said is not totally only because I defend the game of association football. If you allow...
Yes, Pelé, Channel 9 from Portuguese to English.
Yes, my English is not so good, but I
No,
think,
you can speak Portuguese as you prefer.
Okay?
Okay.
Firstly, may I say that I'm very happy and most honored to be here this morning, to be taking part in this debate. Because I'm here to represent footballers all over the world, and I'm here to do it in a direct way. I'm trying to represent all sports people in point of fact, because I think this is the first time that football and sport are debated with the participation of someone representing the players. The players are almost always outside these discussions. In all the years I've been involved in it, I haven't seen much opportunity for players, for athletes, who, after all, are those who entertain you. Everything that's been said thus far this morning about the creating and the emotion, the excitement, everything that's been said about the economic and social side of things, well, all this is predicated on the players playing the game, on giving you the show, and all too often people are inclined to forget this. So I feel that I have a huge responsibility this morning, and I thank people for the opportunity given me to speak, and in particular I thank Seth Blatter, because I've actually been on that field, and I know what it feels like. And I do feel that I have a huge responsibility, and I'm aware of that. But now, perhaps to say more about the excitement and the emotion that sport generates, that football generates, which is no doubt the biggest family in the world. The biggest family in the world is the football family. There's no doubt about that, not a shadow of a doubt. And this is the family which lives most peaceably. It's not at war. There's no war between the poor and the rich, between the people. There's no ethnical or religious differences. Everybody is part of this family, and that's quite wonderful when you think about it. There's the business side of things that manages all this, too, of course, but I'd like to say, I'd like to talk to you about my personal experience. Perhaps I've been one of the few players who've actually had the experience I'm now about to relate. When I played in my first World Cup in Switzerland, that was my first trip abroad. I was brought up in Bauru, which is in the province of Sao Paulo, and that's where I trained. From time to time, we obviously met up with other teams from Wales, from Scotland, from Italy. And I'd come from Brazil, which is a mixed blood country. Lots of people of mixed blood, and I wonder, why aren't there any black players in these teams? I couldn't understand why there weren't any black players playing for Scotland and for Wales. Only Brazil has black players, I thought. But over time, look at the progress that's been made, the social progress. There isn't a team that doesn't have a black player or several black players nowadays. So that's social progress that's been achieved in sport, and in particular in football. Most people haven't even noticed this, and yet it's something well worth noting. In the film on my life, you see me playing with Santos in Africa with people who were thought to be got into trouble sometime, and at that point in time there was no television. So when we didn't know much about these people, so when we got to Libreville, they were at war. So Santos couldn't play. But they stopped wars. They had a truce so Santos could play. So war was brought to a halt to allow us to play. Unfortunately, the truce only lasted for a week. But it does show what sport can do, the power of sport. And I was very happy to have been part of that, and I'm very happy to have been part of this progress. And today we are discussing this because, as Blatter said, the ball is in constant movement. It's constantly on the move. And a very well-known journalist in Brazil, Armando Nogueira, talks about this, and he said, you must have been born with a football attached to your foot. It is my world. God had me be born into a family where this was going to be easy for me, where I was going to be involved with a ball from the very outset, and I'm glad of this. It's important to know that athletes bring people together throughout the world and they're able to promote peace. Thank you.
Thank you. 1967 in Nigeria, correct? It was 1967. Era 1967, in Nigeria, when you stopped the war. 1967. But now, Pelé, you have, the FIFA too, Sepp, you do a lot of things, for solidarity. If I remember, your statement is in favor of the youth. It's football for all for football. You have done, many things. Say yes for children. And I think that Pelé is totally involved today, with UNICEF, with UNESCO. Means that behind, a ball, there is a lot of solidarity. There is a lot of involvement. There is a daily involvement. That's another point that the media, when they look at you, Seb, they look at your organization, they look at the money, they look at the big salary, Could you please tell us what you do on this part of the daily job that you are involved with?
No, I am involved with a lot of program, about the work with the children, we travel over the world, with fair play, with FIFA does, because I think today we support the undeveloped country. I had an experience, as you remember, I was Minister of Sport of Brazil for 4 years, with the President Fernando Henrique Cardoso. And then I had an experience at the place where you give to the children, facility for sport. And in that place, you put down all the violence, all the drugs, the robbing. Then this is make me feel strong to work and more, because this is work in the base. I have the experience in the United States. When I went there, was a big experience, because in the United States the football, soccer is not too big. Then when I got there, in '75 with the Cosmos, we had maybe 5 million kids, no? Used to play. Today is almost 20 million. From 6 years to 20 years to 18 years today in the United States, you know, is the biggest sport is the soccer. And the soccer take the kids to the drug, the kids to the street. Yes. Then we walk in the pool, you know, part of the year. And then I went to Africa and South America. I think I want to give back what football gave it to me. That's what my proposal.
Thank you, Sepp. Please. Come.
Thank you. Thank you.
I think what Pelé has just said resumes exactly what is the activity of football. I don't want to insist on the different development programs of FIFA and the humanitarian activity as well. They are not so very much reported by the media, but we need the media also to report on what we are doing on the humanities. But there is one item I just want to announce, and this is a very big program, which is called Win in Africa for Africa, with Africa, because in 2010 we go with the World Cup for the first time to Africa, to South Africa. And this event, for the first time on the African continent, will create a lot of interest. And here we are not only involved in social and culture, but we also need then the economical help of our partners to go towards the World Cup 2010, to not have it only as an item in South Africa, but as Mr. Thabo Mbeki has said, it shall profit to whole Africa. And this I just wanted to announce, but Pelé has said this resumes exactly what football is in the world. Thank you.
Thank you, Sepp. Now, you know, you are one of the most important, I think, federation in the Olympic movement, but there are persons like Mel Young that are really involved as a social entrepreneur, you know, since many years, and is the organizer today of the World Cup for the homeless. And, you know, I would like you to share your experience with us and to compare, you know, the passion that you do and you transfer every day, and to see if there is connection with the FIFA.
Thank you. I obviously think there's plenty of connection because there's no difference in the outcome of what we're talking about. I absolutely believe that sport, and in our case football, can change the world. I think probably the previous speakers have been a little too modest about it by saying they can change the world a little. I think sport can change the world a lot. And there's other projects other than ourselves operating in different parts of the world, and we don't have the exposure in the media yet. But we can demonstrate clearly that our interventions make the change in individuals, people's lives. Most of you, I suspect, won't have heard of the Homeless World Cup, so let me just tell you about what that is a little. We started the first one in 2003, and what we do is in countries around the world, we work with homeless people, the most marginalized people on the planet, the poorest of the poor, who have no prospect, it seems, to get involved in society, and who are often seen as the total outcasts that societies don't want, that politicians want to get off the streets, want to remove. And my attitude always is, it's about integration. And so we work with the homeless people, and we said, we'd like to invent a football competition that you could take part in. And the only qualifications that you need is that you are homeless. And so we started these projects up in different countries in the world. And in the first tournament, we had 18 countries represented, and last year we had 32. Next year, this coming year, we will be in Cape Town, and we expect between 40 and 48 teams. What happens is the homeless people become involved in the project, in the training, and then there's a selection process. And during that training and that selection process, they're tackling the issues that are in front of them, like drugs and alcohol and so on. You can't play football for your country if you're on drugs and alcohol. So they begin to tackle these problems and changes in individuals as a result. Then their teams are selected and they come to the competition, and we have street football. We play the football in the street, in the middle of cities. People come and watch. And a transformation takes place because these players are representing their country. They stand and sing the national anthem really proudly. Their self-respect and self-esteem changes as they play in part of the team. The crowds that come and watch that previously had another view of homeless people are changed because they start cheering, and these players become heroes. Even children come up and ask them for their autographs. Media take their pictures. And as Pelé says, they become players. They become players and they take on a different persona altogether. And afterwards, the most important thing for us is that after the competition, what happens? And we found a huge percentage of them, over 70%, get involved in changing of their lives, find jobs, houses, get into coaching, get into training, and some even signed by professional football teams. A total change. And what happened here? People say, that's amazing, how did that happen? It's actually really simple. All we did was change the landscape. 1 week before, a player was lying on the streets and people were spitting at him and saying he was a problem. The next week, he's a hero. How? All we did was change the landscape and say, kick a ball around. That's all. And sport has this massive, massive power, football in particular, because it's simple and international and understood, to bring about change in individuals and the outside society watching. And so sport and the development in this development area has a massive potential to create change, end homelessness, end poverty, I believe.
Mel, congratulations and thanks for the sport. But I think that behind you, there is charity. Are you helped by industries? How do you manage, to get found for that? Because I think that the interesting part, is you don't want to have charity, as you say to me.
Yes. But my background is in my introduction as a social entrepreneur, so I think the key thing that we need to create in the world is sustainability in the long run. It's not about charity, this, and the players change, it's about self-respect and so on. And I think in terms of what we've done here, a key element is about partnership. And we've developed very, very good partners in different areas. And we've had this partnership since the beginning, obviously with the football authorities, from UEFA, the European Football Association, from FIFA and so on, and the football clubs who get involved in the different countries has been superb. We also have had support from the beginning from the United Nations, and I think we shouldn't forget about the role that Kofi Annan and the International Year of Sport last year, Adolf Ogge's office, has had in trying to push that onto the agenda. We've had these partners since the beginning. And also from the commercial world, our strategic partner is Nike. And the way we work together is not in terms of a sponsor relationship, it's much more of a strategic alliance, an understanding in terms of Nike's core competencies and what they want ally with ours in terms of making the world a better place. And so we get to create a really good relationship. And so these partnerships have been very, very important to us and allowed us to develop. And so that we're creating a win-win scenario for everybody that's involved, not just ourselves, the homeless people, the people that watch, but our partners. And if I could just add, 2 years ago, I think it was, I heard Bill Clinton speak here. And he was talking about globalization and what that meant. And he said that there was a moral imperative. If there was a project somewhere in the world, a social project that was good and was working, for it to be transferred around the world so that it could have a major impact. And I thought that that was a very interesting comment he made. And what we've been trying to do with the Homeless World Cup and working with our partners now is to take this to scale across the world, show that it works, make the impact, working with other partners around the world so that we can make a major impact into homelessness in the world using football and sport as the tool.
Thank you, Mel. I think that your presentation is really impressive. I take the occasion to because I've seen on the floor the President of Hockey and the representative of the United Nations, Kofi Annan, was with us yesterday to support the sport. Thank you very much to be here. And it's normal that from your experience, I asked to Charles Denson, president of Nike, how do you work on this world? Because everybody knows Nike, but we would like to know a little bit better what is your involvement on this part of your job.
Well, I think, thanks, Angelo. It's a pleasure to be here today. I think, first of all, maybe I start with how, as a corporation, Nike looks at the investment back into the community. Really, we look at it three different ways. The first way is how can we create systemic change? And how can we do that by nurturing new, innovative, and in many ways, entrepreneurial ideas? And I think Mel's story is a great example of something that started actually with a conversation here at Davos almost 5 years ago, I think it was. And the first time we heard it, it was not something that you immediately reacted to and said, we're in. And but again, it was a compelling story, and it created a systemic change in the way that a company or a brand like Nike can interact with the community. So that would be the first way. I think the second way that something that we look at and take into consideration is it sustainable? Is the investment something that is not just a one-off event, that is not repeatable or scalable or sustainable over a longer period of time? I think a great example of that is actually an announcement that's going on as we speak with respect to a launch of a new brand called Red. And we have dedicated one of our brands, Converse, and committed product to an unbelievable issue worldwide around the fight of AIDS and HIV. And this particular relationship is built around the concept that it can be sustainable, that there's a profitability model involved in creating an opportunity to not only build and market a brand, but to be able to create the investment and the contribution of that brand back to one of the biggest issues on the planet today. I think the third thing that we always look at is how can we leverage the investment into a much bigger event or a much broader scale or impact. And I think a great example of that came a couple of years ago in the way of a small yellow band, a small yellow wristband that we did with Lance Armstrong and his foundation. And all of a sudden, athletes around the world started wearing a little yellow band, and we raised over $60 million for the investment back into the care of families of cancer victims around the world. Another example of that, using the same idea, was the Stand Up, Speak Up campaign, the advertising campaign that we ran in Europe that highlighted the issue of racism in the sport of football and the need to eradicate that from the arenas of the world. And so those are examples of the different ways that we look at reinvesting back into the community around sport that is both sustainable, leverageable, and scalable. Why do we do it? Well, it's obvious for us, and I think one of the things that people take for granted, there is a commercial benefit to us. But it's not just around the commercial benefit. I think one of the things that Dr. Rogge mentioned is the issue of healthcare and fitness. And I think studies have shown that for every dollar invested in sport or fitness and activity comes back as much as threefold in savings around the care of healthcare, around diabetes and obesity around the world. So that's one of the reasons as a company we invest back into sport, back into fitness, and ultimately back into health. And it is ironic that this session today is actually entitled, Can a Ball Change the World? Because I think for us who live and work and play in the world of sport as both a profession and a livelihood, it's like asking us, is the sky blue? I think Mel said it well. It is, I think Mr. Blatter and Mr. Rogge are being somewhat modest. I think the sports and their federations impact the world incredibly and amazingly in a very positive manner. Sports is used to sell almost anything you can imagine, from financial services to potato chips to sneakers. But sometimes we don't think about what sports can do around society. and how much of an impact it can have on both an economic and a social agenda. So if we can create more awareness around that today, then I think we've completed an objective number one, but there's still a lot of work we can do.
Thank you, Charles. Now, I think that we have another experience to share with you, David. NBA, fantastic name, national sport, American. Today, TV in more than 200 countries, if right, you know, more than 50 languages. And you represent, you know, for many of us, you know, an example of you have been able to mix, you know, everything, economics, solidarity, you know, sport, and to organize something that is worldwide known.
I'd love to associate myself with just about everything that's been said here because it's true, and I'd like to really commend the forum for putting sports on the agenda. Because after spending a lifetime in sports, I'd like to say, if you look at it, think about it, it's the most egalitarian of pursuits. You know, where do you come from doesn't matter. Do you have game? You play. You're Brazilian, you're American, you're from Europe, it doesn't matter. Rich, poor, doesn't matter. It's the most egalitarian. And if you're at our arenas, it doesn't matter whether you sit at the nosebleed up on the top or you sit at courtside for a couple of $1,000s. Your opinion is the same. I know that because I ride in taxis all over the world and I get all kinds of opinions. It absolutely unifies and unites people. It's incredible. And I guess what I would say is that the power of sport is so great that if we don't do a better job of using it coming out of this conference and recognizing it, we should be very harshly judged because it has changed the world. It has changed the world. Do you know what ping pong diplomacy is? You know, when the United States and China went for the unfathomable, we were going to get together again. Apartheid was going to be eradicated in South Africa eventually, but the isolation that was imposed, particularly in sports, the Olympics were a tremendous prod to the timetable with respect to the end of apartheid. North and South Korea marching under a single banner in Dr. Rogge's Olympics and negotiating over fielding a team together in an area that is exactly safe, which is sports. It's really, you know, quite incredible. Those are the political. When the Soviet Union wanted to open up a dialogue with Israel, which was going to lead to really the second largest immigration in centuries, they invited Maccabi Tel Aviv, the European champion, to play basketball against Red Army Moscow. So it's happening under our very eyes, except we haven't been adding it up. And the power of that, I mean, Magic Johnson announcing that he was HIV positive in 1991 changed the debate about AIDS in our country and around the world. The last act that I can recall in the United States before Magic announced that he was HIV positive was a young child, Ryan White, was banned from the Indiana schools because he was HIV positive as a result of transfusions. Yet the face of AIDS became a beloved athlete, and the discussion changed completely. And as recently as last year, the Chinese government requested that we assist them in the campaign to destigmatize AIDS. And who do you use? You know, that great Chinese player, Magic Johnson, and Yao Ming. And the Aaron Diamond website gets 11 million hits because the spots were played, the public service announcements were played. And that, as a result, very much of a combination of our work with the Global Business Council on AIDS. So we live it and we see it, what enormous power it has. It's gone a little further with Mr. Rogge. Under UN auspices, we took players from the former Yugoslavia to Treviso to talk, that our players didn't speak to each other. But in the context of working with the UN, we went to Treviso, brought Croatian and Serbian kids together. in a Basketball Without Borders program that we partner with our friends at FIBA, our International Basketball Federation. And an aside, I think the 250 million football players are good on a global basis. I think we have that many in China alone playing basketball, because actually what kids do first is they dribble. They don't kick. But we're able to combine with FIBA and Nike and our friends at Coca-Cola and do these things in a most extraordinary way. And that involves UNICEF. It involves that we've been doing with people here at the Ichitung Trust with Mama Jackie, who's been at this conference for years, bringing our players there to work with kids to talk about healthy lifestyle and education on a global basis. And why is that? Because Pelé is right. It's about the athletes. The impact that the athletes have is extraordinary. On a global basis, this most American of sports, some would say, the NBA, 50% of the visits to our website are from outside the United States, 20% are from the Mandarin language site, and you could guess what the average age is of the people who are sort of accessing us. So the power of sport is absolutely incredible, and I guess I would add one more thing. It used to be an entirely male preserve, and that's changing. It's changing across the world, where sport becomes a place where we have dialogue about a young Indian woman playing tennis. We have extraordinary dialogues about the Women's National Basketball Association, the Women's World Cup, the changes in role models here, which young women will be able to access, are actually changing first in the context of sports in terms of publicity. And so different models, it's okay to sweat. It's okay to, and these aspects, these wonderful aspects of sport, discipline, competition, teamwork that have largely been a male province have suddenly opened up. And in Beijing, our Chinese friends are happy to tell us that China will win the most gold medals, but the majority of those gold medals will be won by women. So don't doubt the context of what sport can do to change the world. It is, and it will continue to do so.
Thank you. I think that, as usual, you have a worldwide vision, David. But now, time is over. I think that if there is some...
I thought you were Italian.
Yes. No, but the time is over. We have Q&A from the floor. But before to say that we have finished, I would like to understand if there is something else that someone would like to add. President Rogge, you have...
No, I just wanted to add that I'm getting infected by the enthusiasm of my colleagues here on the panel about the role of sport. I believe in the role of sport, definitely. But we have also to be very honest and frank and to do our homework before. Sport has a great social relevance, and sport is, I believe, very beneficial for society, both at the level of the individual and society as a whole. For the society, you will have the fact that the young athlete will learn to interact with others, which is the first acquisition of social skills. You will have the integration of social and ethnic minorities into a team. You will have the respect of the authority by respecting the referee first and then later on the laws of society. And especially, sport will bring health. And this health will vastly reduce the cost of social security and public health that most countries are finding very difficult to bear today. So I believe in this social relevance. I believe also in the other aspect that has been described today, such as our role in helping people in need, and what is being done for the Homeless World Cup is fantastic. And this is something that also many federations and the IOC also are doing. Whenever there has been a country that has been ravaged by war, we come, we help, we support, that has been happening in Iraq, that has been happening in Afghanistan, in East Timor, and in many other regions and countries affected by war. We assisted in a very generous way. The world of sport was very generous in donating funds after the tsunami. We've done the same after the BAM earthquake. We've done the same after the Caribbean tropical storms, the latest earthquake in Pakistan. And this is something sport will continue to do. But when I'm speaking about the homework, we have to be very honest and we have to fight our own shortcomings. Doping, violence, corruption, and federations are working hard for that. And this is something as a sacred mission that we're having. And then ultimately to try to correct the imbalance between North and South, keeping the kids in the developed world moving again, and trying to break down the hurdles of the developing world where access to sport is more difficult.
Thank you, President Rogge. I think that we are at the end of our presentation. We have shared the expertise that we have in the sport. I think that one conclusion could be we need to improve probably the communication. Sepp, there is...
Yes, I just want to add something. First of all, I was impressed by Mrs. Stearns. 250 million Chinese playing the ball. That's good. But our players, they cannot use the hand. That's it. But I'm impressed about that. But I just wanted to say, if we take the game as a global part of our society, when it touches as well the social, cultural, economic and political side, then we could wind up by saying, make the game better, take it to the world, and make the world a better place. It's a good...
That's a fantastic conclusion. Now, Q&A from the floor. If there is, if you present yourself, if there is any question. No question, because I don't see.
My question is to Mel Young and David Stern. Mel, this is absolutely fantastic what the soccer football World Cup is doing. And I would imagine in the American context, where basketball is a much more preeminent sport, this would lend itself so well to the urban challenges that people face. Homelessness is an urban issue and would be a great opportunity for the NBA to work with you on developing a basketball homeless cup in the United States.
I mean, I think our focus very much is on football, or soccer as you call it in the States, and we are actually developing now a strategy for around the world to involve people. One of those is for the United States, so we're very keen on getting homeless people in the United States involved in soccer. And I have to say, by the way, the homelessness in the United States is absolutely shocking. I mean, you go to cities in the States and there's people lying around in the streets, and it's absolutely appalling. But I think that street soccer can work now. I think other things can work as well. We do the soccer, as you call it, because it's very, very simple. But basketball's a big sport in the US, and we'd be delighted to work with David in this. If it in the outcome it makes a difference to the people, that's the main thing, and I'm sure it would do.
I think we have to work to our strengths and not to be all things to all people. For us, you know, sports is very, very attractive in urban settings. And for us, what our players mean to those settings, we have elected to focus on education and reading, because, as we've said it in different iterations, working with reading is fundamental in the United States to develop in kids a lifelong love of reading and to encourage their parents to do that, because that then leads to computer skills. And you can't even win a game if you can't get into it, and if you can't read. The statistics on reading, I mean, we've seen it all. people would come into us and say, if you've been abused, if you're in jail, if you're a drug user, it all goes back. You will always see a fundamental either abusiveness or a lack of education or a lack of reading. And they say, well, sports has to be the answer. And we say, help. I mean, we're not trained for it and we don't do it. But after all we've surveyed, for us, fundamentally allowing kids to develop the skills to somehow succeed in society is our principal focus in the United States. Working around the world, it's a little bit different because of UNICEF's focus on helping kids, fighting AIDS, and the hunger. We work with the World Food Program. It's almost impossible to choose, so you make your choices. And for us, it's about kids, and it's about the impact that our players have on kids.
Please present yourself.
The name is Ray Chen-Yang. I'm a director and presenter of China Central Television. We do have 400 million viewers every night. A question for President Rogge. Really impressed by your speech and your optimism on China. My question is about the Olympic sponsorship. It so happens that the gentleman sitting next to me is China's Dairy King. His company, China's #1 food company, just became the very first company from the western part of China, the poor part of China, to be a sponsor of the Beijing Olympics in 2008. I'm very happy to notice that it seems to me that in terms of the selection of sponsors, the International Olympic Committee seems to put more emphasis on not only on the money part, but also on what tangible benefits these sponsors can bring to society. My question is that this company's name is Yili Milk. It produces milk. On the mind of the IOC, does it represent the future of selection of sponsors? In my personal opinion, milk enterprise for Chinese people, only 10% of Chinese people have access to milk nowadays. It's much more socially beneficial than, say, Coca-Cola or Budweiser, who have both become Olympic sponsors in Beijing 2008.
President?
I must admit I did not understand your question, sir. Sorry, yes. Could you rephrase it in a maybe shortened version?
Sure.
And come to the point, because there was a lot
on the mind of the IOC, is it the future selection criteria of Olympic sponsors? Will you prefer companies like Yili Milk in China that produces milk, good products for the society, instead of companies like Coca-Cola and Budweiser, alcohol products? Thank you.
The International Olympic Committee has a very strict ethical behavior, and whenever we have associations with our partners, we make sure that these are people who are also socially responsible. And I believe that the two companies you have quoted are absolutely socially responsible and definitely have no shortcomings in this aspect.
And I'd like to meet with the milk company after the session.
Yes, the milk company, yes. There is a lot of sport to sponsorize. Other question? Yes, please.
Hi, Lorenzo Mendoza. I'm a part of the Young Global Leaders program here at Davos. Did you touch, Dr. Rogge, just briefly, and Mr. Blatter, about the corruption issues that has been somehow around the institutions that you represent? What have you been doing lately about it? I know that's been a lot of progress on that, but could you be more specific about it?
The thing that worries us today is the trends that seems to emerge from online betting, where online betting is based on results of matches and sports competitions. And we have indications that sometimes some of the competitions are manipulated in various sports. It's not an issue particularly for football only, but in many sports you see that matches might be fixed because of this betting that is now generating huge flows of money. FIFA is working on it, and the International Olympic Committee, and we agreed to work together on it to see what we could do in terms of preventing that. But I'd like to give the floor to Seb Blatter.
Thank you anyway for the question, because it is bound also with the ball. Yes, we are fighting against that, and I have to say that I was so surprised and disappointed when I have seen that in two of the big national associations, like Brazil and Germany, there have been corruption in refereeing. But in these cases, corruption is in connection with legal or illegal betting. We are aware of this situation. Congress of FIFA in Marrakesh, anyway the first one in Africa, has taken the decision that to charge or to give responsibility to the FIFA president in the task force for the good of the game to go into this problem, not only to find a solution, but to address it towards the whole family of football. It is equally, it is connected with racism, which is still in our game and which is horrible, I have to say that. But these are items we try to take them under control. Concerning the referees, there is one solution in professional sports. You should have professional referees, and then they would not be so much under temptation. And here I have to make a compliment to the American sports and their professional leagues, because this will not happen there.
Can I have
Thank you, sir.
one part in this
Yes.
I think sometime you must see the properly reason from that, and then why have that. I don't think so. In the football, corruption, the way we say, the corruption of football. If you see the number of referees you have all over the world, you see what happened in football. They have a play and game every week, 3-4 games for a week. Then you have one case in Brazil, another case in England. Then you say the corruption in football. I think it should get this point too. You know, the human being make a mistake. Human being, you know, in the political wise, we have a lot of, you know, corruption. But in football, you have 2 cases, you say corruption in football. I don't accept that. I don't accept that. Because that's not true. Because the number of games we have all over the world, they are not corruption in compare with the political, for example, situation. You know, I don't agree. We must, of course, to fight and to avoid that, but I don't accept the corruption in football. No, we have 2 cases. Okay?
Well, okay, other question, please.
We understand that the football...
Sorry, would you present yourself, please?
Saud bin Abdullah, we understand that the football is very important for the principle and for the values. How we can work together to give the chance to watch all the games. And I have a suggestion for that. If the Federation can sell the game with the 15 minutes for halftime, and all the TV can show that's 15 minutes, maybe it will help the poor people and the poor country to watch the football.
Oh, that's a problem of rights. You know, I think, no, Sepp, if,
yeah, but it is, I can explain it in 1 hour time.
Yes.
Because it is a question of the rights, but you may be ensured that in the 2006 World Cup, in every country where at least there is a downlink from a satellite, all matches can be seen. All matches. 64 matches.
The last question, please, Mr. Rogge. President Rogge, sorry.
Hello, my name is Adolf Rogge. I am Kofi Annan's delegate on sport for development and peace. Ladies and gentlemen, we need more passion for sport. After those words, we need actions. The goal of the World Economic Forum is committed to improving the state of the world. Today we must see the politicians, the economic leaders, the scientific leaders, and the religious leaders have not achieved the highest goal to create a more peaceful world. So we need a new instrument. And this new instrument can be sport. If we believe in sport, if we believe in the good side of sport. My high goal as Kofi Annan's delegate on sport for development and peace is to create a new generation who has gone through the world of sport, to learn to win without thinking you're the best, to learn to lose without thinking that's the end, to respect the opponent. Maybe I don't agree with you, but I always respect you, to accept rules, as Dr. Rogge said, to accept the decision of the referee. And my goal is that the new generation who will run the world will always deal with the problem of the world in another way, always in the interest of the human beings, always in the interest of the world. We can achieve that goal if we believe in. I do what I believe in, and I believe what I do. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much. Thank you.